Councilman Henwood,
Here.
Councilman Doran, Councilman Monty,
Here.
Councilman Vidal,
Here.
Councilman Jordan, Councilman Jordan,
Here.
Councilman Bartolomeo,
Here.
Mayor's absent. Let the record show that Councilman Jordan is participating via telephone.
And Councilman Henry will be Councilman Dorn will be a few minutes late.
Councilman Doran will be a few minutes late. Dr. Dave, welcome back. In compliance with New Jersey's Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231 of PL's 1975, I hereby declare that adequate notice of this meeting has been provided, specifying that this meeting would be held on this date in the municipal building, 55 River Road, Edgewater, New Jersey, at 7 p.m. This notice was sent to the Record and the Jersey Journal, posted on the bulletin board in the lobby of the Borough Hall, and posted on the borough's website. At this time, I'd like everybody to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, this is a little bit of a different night and a little bit sad in a way. The Mayor James Delaney has submitted his resignation as mayor. It happened this afternoon. I'll read the letter. Attention to Barbara Ray, Borough Clerk. Dear Ms. Ray, please be advised that effective immediately, I hereby resign as mayor of Borough of Edgewater. Although I am sad to leave, I am confident that Edgewater will continue to grow into one of the most desirable communities in Bergen County. I have always strived to do what was best for the Borough of Edgewater. I have been honored to serve our residents for the past 8 years. Respectfully, James F. Delaney, Mayor. I did call the mayor. I didn't get a chance to speak to Jim, but it just goes without saying that that he's a class individual, that we were very lucky to have him. He served us very well, the people of Edgewater very well. You all know recently he sold his house. I think he's moving on to bigger and better things. We all wish the best for him and his family, and I'm sad to see him go. And I guess we'll be talking about what we need to do to recognize that as we move forward. At this time, we're going to go into conference. Okay, is Mrs. Farrell here? Mrs. Farrell's not here. Okay, are you here on behalf of the Historical Society as well, Doug, or no?
I'm the chairman.
Okay, well, we had talked about a specific plan, and she was going to come tonight. Okay, why don't we do this? I have some notes. The Historical Society met with, and this is a council person, met as to talk about the historic cemetery. And there were a number of recommendations they made, and they did a lot of work on it. It was quite detailed, and a lot of points were made. And we met as a committee. The Mayor Delaney, formed a committee, myself, Councilman Bartolomeo, Greg, and Tom Quinton. Went onto the site, took notes, all went back and had different things to do. We'll start with Tom Quinton, because there's good news and bad news. Some things are budget considerations or constrictions. Other things we could do now, and the other things we could do later. But one of their points was the cemetery should be locked at all times, and up until a few weeks ago it wasn't. It is now. Tom Quinton made sure that the historical committee had recommended perhaps maybe the police department or the DPW. Tom Quinton has taken upon himself to be the gatekeeper, if you will. He has a signed order that will say if you need access, call DPW. His men will be on during the day, which is the hours that you should be in there anyway. They'll come and they'll lock it for you. There'll be a nice sign. It'll be locked and controlled by him. He's taking care of that. Several tombstones are nearly off their bases, ready to fall down. It's been pointed out by the committee. Dangerous situation. Tom said in the spring of 2015, they will undertake the uprighting of the stones that have been knocked down. They've done this in the past years, and we will continue to do it. There are some that are going to need restoration, so let's separate the two issues. One is just putting them up, securing them, using the right materials to secure them. Others might need reconstruction or expert care. Tom's men will take care of the things that they can take care of in the spring. Dead branches all over the place. We walked through it, we saw it. There was definitely some cleanup. They've done a great job. Guys, when it opens up for Memorial Day weekend, it's beautiful. They keep it through the summer. You know, it's, you look at the cemeteries, full-time crews on cemeteries, and we have our guys doing it when we need it done. He has committed over the winter to have a tree guy come in and trim the large trees with dead branches. We will take down the pine trees in the back of the cemetery, something specific that was recommended by the Historical Society. He will take care of that. Several of the graves need either to be filled in with dirt or removing a mound that's developed. Many gopher holes in the spring, while upright, we'll also make sure that fill the holes with topsoil. A black wrought iron fence, now we're getting onto some of the things that, that's not decided tonight, but it was suggested maybe that wall in front comes down, and black iron fence, wrought iron fence goes up, so people can see into it. It's a historical thing, open it up to people. There's a couple considerations there Tom has brought up. It may not be sound to bring it down. What happens if it does come down? That's still under consideration. It's a budget item. We'll roll into the other part of that with regard to the easement and who has access to the driveway as you come in, who owns it, and that sort of goes on to beyond Tom's area. Let me finish up with Tom Quinton and the DPW. As we found out as part of a sign indicating old Reland Cemetery, dress it up, make it look nice, put a historical sign there, give it the respect it deserves. Maybe that's something we can talk about with the new development next door in terms of funding it. We're going to be asking for a meeting. We've asked for a meeting. We're going to have a meeting to talk about what they're doing, not necessarily redesigning it, because it's a developer's agreement. It wasn't this board or the board that approved it. It's long on its way to being developed, but maybe there's things they can contribute. Maybe they can take care of their wrought iron fence. Maybe they can look at this side, along the side of where their building is. We'll talk about the spot out south of the cemetery where they perhaps can do some Linda's here now. We're just kind of gone through some of it, sorry. I'll brief you afterwards. And I know you were there today, and I know you took some photographs and have some things you might want to comment on. Tom has basically agreed to do a lot of the things that on the first part of your report, and I'll talk to you about it also. The fence installed, I believe we looked at this and there was agreed the fence appeared to be sufficient. Okay, so this basically is all the stuff the DPW is going to do. The other things that are in the report are budget items and also need to be looked at from a construction standpoint. I want to turn it over to Greg to talk about the ownership of the properties. The Historical Society said if you're looking at the cemetery to the right, there's a grass piece, actually where the old chapel used to be, which I didn't know. That's owned by Avalon. To the left, there's a postage stamp piece that goes up to the new spa area that they were saying, well, boy, if that belongs to us, then we should be able to put a nice little park in there, a little sitting area before you go into the... And unfortunately, the answer is what?
This came at the appropriate time, Mr. Henwood, in regards to updating our tax maps along with the ownership of the parking area and the driveway access in front of the cemetery. Essentially, the surveyor in charge of the tax map preparation did research and has confirmed that the parking area and driveway access is not owned by the borough. It is an easement from lot 1, which is the Avalon property. And so the easement extends from the border of the Avalon property to the adjoining lot 1.03, I believe, where the Heaven is now currently being constructed. They have the right to construct their building on that wall. That wall is not borough property, nor is the parking borough property. We have an easement to use it. So that's the report.
So from the days of Alcoa, the only thing we own is actually what's inside the wall area of the cemetery.
That is correct.
Going across the park line to the left, that's an easement that we're allowed to use.
That's correct.
Okay. That's not what we wanted to know, or that's what we wanted to hear. I have said before you walked in, I have requested a meeting with the Heaven to talk about the design, what's left from a budget standpoint, how they can help us be a good neighbor, be a good citizen. Hopefully I'll have that meeting within the next week or so. And I know you didn't hear the first part of the report, but certainly if you have some comments, and I believe you do, feel free. Mrs. Farrell, if you like, sure. Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
I'm sorry, and Mrs. Farrell is the head of the subcommittee of the Historical Society, specifically for the cemetery.
Right. Okay. Thank you for letting me speak about the cemetery. It was something I took an interest in, and I'm retired, and felt that I'd like to get involved with the cemetery because I think that it's a real asset to Edgewater, that it's really a gem as far as the cemetery in Bergen County. There are graves in the cemetery that are over 200 years old, and it's something that Edgewater should be proud of, and really should do what it can to make it look, better than the way it does look. So I had a meeting with the county historian, and she gave me some maps. Now, these go back a way, but I don't understand how the property changed in the cemetery over the years, as far as, from the maps that I have, that I can see, it was a rather square piece, a rectangular piece. So I don't understand what happened, that Avalon took over the property. I just don't understand it. So I would like to just find out about what happened with that. Where the church was is now, Avalon uses that piece of property for their transformers and whatever. And there is a wall that goes back east-west along the cemetery and then goes north-south to, square off that piece. Well, it's a rectangular piece. And I guess, there's an easement coming out of Avalon where people walk out and then walk into the cemetery parking lot. So, I don't know how that all came about. I mean, I'm only thinking in terms of the cemetery and what we can do to just preserve it. I was just, I don't understand how, well, today when I went to the cemetery and I went inside the cemetery, I took pictures of where the developer is hammered in his, or put in the structural steel, which is right, into the cemetery as far as, along the wall of the cemetery. Now
Well,
that.
not into the cemetery, but along the wall right next to it.
Yes.
Flush against
But
it.
it's in the wall.
Anchored.
It is in the wall. And the wall in the front of the cemetery has been, on the south side of the cemetery has been knocked down. So, by a little building and so forth. So I just wonder, in the long run, as far as the history of the property and what happened over the years, that the town lost control of the entire piece of property. I mean, because according to the county, it should still be borough property, all in front of the cemetery and that side. And I thought there was a building code that you couldn't build right on the property line, that it had to be 4 foot from the property line. So I'm just surprised that, this is really into the wall of the cemetery. Now, in the long run, if the developer, and we can certainly give him PR by him helping us to improve the look of the cemetery, if he, reconstructed the wall on the south side and made it look, a lot more presentable. There's a lot of construction debris inside the cemetery that, that shouldn't be there. I was
Still leaving today?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was hoping that before they did a lot of construction, that he would, or she would, whoever the builder is, would help with the trees in the cemetery, because the equipment, some of those trees are not really good anymore. And I even told
The
him
trees
about that.
the tree site that you report are coming out for Tom Quinton, and he's addressed all the tree stuff, so that kind of, and I'll talk to you about it offline because I presented it already, but
Okay.
I think we're okay there. Go ahead.
All right, because they thought that, the county thought that maybe some of those trees should come down, because there's a lot of dead wood and dead branches on those trees. They're not going anyplace.
He's bringing in
They're not
trees
going
expert
anywhere.
in to look to do it, so, yeah.
Very good. Okay, so my concern is just that, what can we do to try and, maybe help ask the developer to help us, with the appearance of the cemetery, and try to do things that, need to get done. I know I came here to a meeting a couple of months ago, and I picked up a card from the town grant writer. Now, certainly, to have the stone preservationists come in and, you know, put the stones upright, them back on their bases and so forth in the cemetery, probably costs a lot of money. But if we could, you know, I would be willing to help, you know, with whatever she would need to write the grants, et cetera.
Okay. I will, maybe, yeah, if you mute that before we talk to him. What you're referring to, I'm with you 100%. And really, and I took a couple notes here. The offset between the distance, in other words, the original milling house was up against the wall. They just basically replicated what was there previous.
Zero setback.
There's a zero setback, okay. So that's where that came from. That's not this board. I'm not passing on to another board. I'm just saying that's where that came from. I definitely would like copies of that for you
Yeah,
guys to review those, because that's, believe me, there's nothing that would make me happier, or any of it, all of us happier, everyone in this room, if this information is incorrect. Third thing, and most importantly, I think, for this exercise, is the picture you're looking at is what we've been looking at, and it doesn't serve them well, and it definitely doesn't serve us well. So that will be the point of the meeting with the developer, which I'm going to have in the next 2 weeks with a couple other council people, and we're going to press them hard to dress up that whole area, because you know, it's a high-end spot where you're looking at it, and that will be the focus of
This
it.
could be a real benefit for Edgewater too. Even if we put in our own room marker, historic marker for the cemetery, we don't have to go, according to the county historian, we don't have to go through the Bergen County Historical Society. It would take too long, it would cost too much, but we could do our own. Just in terms of, you know, memorializing the cemetery for what it is, because it's really, I mean, there's some really important people
Sure.
buried there.
Sure.
And most people don't know that. So, you know, down the road, I would like to really, unless you find out more about the people that are buried there, maybe write a, you know, a book about, there's over 1,600 people buried there. So, you know, a lot of information.
All right, copies of that, if you don't mind, and then I'll make sure I get back to you writing the report for Tom Whitten. And I really appreciate all your hard work. We are going to stay on this. This is important to all of us. We're going to make it happen.
Okay, thank you so much, I really appreciate it.
I just wanted to, before we move on, just want to point out that there's a, that there is, I'm just taking the, I don't know what the words, I'm just going to say that the most, number one, besides the cemetery, the most important thing we have going now is Veterans Field. And there was a special meeting the other night that wasn't attended by anyone except for reporters, and it was put in the newspapers, and it was definitely appropriate. And it had one reason for the meeting, and that's because in the remediation process, we're hitting groundwater in a couple of spots. And once you hit groundwater, that's it, you got to stop digging. We went to the EPA to find out, LSRP went to the EPA to find out a protocol for that. The protocol was given to us, and anywhere in those limited areas that we come up against that, we'll be able to cap it with clay, and I'll let the experts talk about it after the public session. There is a response on the table from Greg. It might well be gone now. He's got scooped up. I told him to make more. That was written to the record. There was an article in the record that I want to go on record by saying was inaccurate in the sense that it never mentioned that we're hitting groundwater. It talked about almost that we were reneging on the .02, that we're allowing contaminants to stay, that we rewrote the game plan. Nothing was further from the truth. It was shame on the record for reporting it the way it was done. And the responses to the record, we're looking for a response from them to come back to us. It was bad, the facts were bad, and the LSRP is here to clarify that after public session if anyone wants to hear it. Moving on. Not yet. Because the main reason, one of the great reasons here tonight is to celebrate someone's retirement. After 25 years, Ms. Barbara Ray is retiring as the clerk of the borough. Certainly like to recognize that for all the hard work. We're going to miss you. And this is your life. It was 1975.
I feel like Sophia in, thank you. Thank you.
Barbara Ray, Borough Clerk, Municipal Clerk, December 15, 2014. Barbara Ray began her career for the Borough of Edgewater after being appointed November 8, 1989 as a full-time clerk for the Police Department, Recycling Department, and Borough Clerk's Office. In March of 1992, she was appointed exclusively as a Secretary of the Board of Health and served as both Deputy Register of Vital Statistics and Deputy Municipal Clerk before becoming appointed Municipal Clerk in June of 2000. After 25 years of distinguished service to the Borough of Edgewater, its residents, 3 mayors, and more than 20 council representatives, Barbara has decided to retire and enjoy her time with family and friends and dining. On behalf of the mayor and council, we thank Barbara for not only her role as the best municipal clerk who has ever served in the state of New Jersey, but also as a dear friend who has provided wisdom and guidance to all who have served during her time and her tenure here. 25 years of loyal and dedicated service presented by Mayor James Delaney, Council President, Henwood Borough Council, Dr. Dave Jordan, Louis Vidal, Vince Monti, Kevin Doran, Anthony Bartolomeo.
Thank you, Dr. Dave.
Donnie, she's all yours.
That's it. Thank you very much. Now,
Oh, that would be appropriate, sure, absolutely.
what's that?
After 25 years, you can do whatever you want.
Did you get it? If I may say a few words. As you know, I'm retiring at the end of the month, and this will be my last council meeting, serving in my official capacity as a municipal clerk. When I came to work for the borough in 1989, I was seeking employment as a part-timer. However, part-time employment was not an option at that time. It was either full-time or nothing. I decided to accept the full-time position as a secretary of municipal clerk, police department, DPW, and recycling department. I was promoted to deputy borough clerk in 1997 and then appointed to municipal clerk in June 2000. I would like to thank those past borough officials who had observed my work ethics and who had enough confidence in my abilities to provide me with the opportunity to serve our residents as their municipal clerk for the past 14 years. I have worked with Mayor Christensen, Mayor Merce, and Mayor Delaney, in addition to the many borough professionals who are always there for me and willing to share their knowledge with me for the betterment of our community. I would like to thank our borough employees. I have often told all borough officials, both in closed session and open session, and the borough of Edgewater is very fortunate. No offense now, guys, we have a great cast of characters working for the borough, and I mean that in the most, what?
Respectful.
Yes, most respectful way, thank you. I commend them for what they do, and I thank them for their help they provided me over the years. Additionally, I would like to wish Anna Marie the best of luck in her role as the next clerk. I would like to thank my family, especially my husband, who is and has always been the most supportive person in my life. After all, how many husbands do you know who come to every council meeting and support his wife? At sometimes that could be very painful. With all kidding aside, I would like to say how much I love Edgewater, and serving as Edgewater's municipal clerk has been a great honor for me. Challenging at times, however, a great honor. Before I end one journey of life and prepare for the next, I would like to extend my best wishes to the governing body, all borough employees, and all the residents of the borough of Edgewater. Until next time.
Thank you, Barbara. Want to take a 5-minute break? No. All right. At this time, we'd like to, okay, we're going to ask for a motion to go out of order. No, we're not. What are we
Yes,
doing?
motion to go out of regular order of business prior to entering closed session.
Do I need to say it? Okay, intro. Do an intro for that.
I'll introduce. Second.
Call roll.
Councilman
Yes.
Henwood? Councilman Doran?
Yes.
Councilman Monti?
Yes.
Motion passes.
And in doing so, we're going to the public. Okay, at this time, I'd like to open the meeting to the public. Mary?
Thank you, guys. Bye.
Mary Hogan, 606 Underwood Avenue. I was very distressed as to the vote that was taken at the last meeting and the fact that really the public was unaware of it on the website. I look under special meetings and it's not listed under special meetings. In fact, it wasn't even listed under borough clerk, it was listed under the administrator as special events. And so I was not aware of it. However, it was amazing that it only took you 35 days from the election to change your mind on everything that you had sworn up and down at these meetings and all your literature that you were going to clean the veterans field to the highest level. Although I read Greg's report, I also read the report of your environmental, and there is not just one way to clean it up when you hit groundwater. You can continue to excavate and you can continue to remove the PCBs. But what you have to do is take now the contaminated groundwater and treat it and take it out. And he indicates that that would be financially, maybe a financial burden. I don't have any problem with it being a financial burden because you also have said meeting after meeting and meeting and in all your literature that you're going to really go after these guys and you're really going to make them pay for all of this. So you know what? I don't care how much it costs. It costed me, it's going to cost them. Which brings me to the question as to why do you guys always vote to help waterside construction and help Fred Ives? You're always saving him money. You're always doing everything to make this world happier for him. And I don't really think that's right. I can't imagine that people don't know who owns the heaven or whatever the heck they call it. It's Fred. That's where our contamination in Veterans Field came from. You certainly should know that. And in your negotiations to ask the developer to help you, I hope it doesn't include letting him off on the Veterans Field contamination. The report says the contamination went, you're down 4 to 5 feet. That's a heck of a lot of contamination he deposited on that field, if it's deeper than that. That means he really dug down and he really, really deposited his crap there. And you guys, just help him. We're not going to clean it up. We're going to put that in play. And you also have a problem when you hit groundwater contamination on Veterans Field. You have a huge issue that water is now contaminated. First of all, groundwater goes to the Hudson River. So you're contaminating the Hudson River. Groundwater also sits on top where children play, where people come to use the community center. And now that's contaminated. But you don't have a problem with just putting clay or whatever over it and then, make it a parking lot or whatever. And what it does is it makes that field perpetual, one of the few times the perpetual actually holds in this town, perpetually contaminated. The borough of Edgewater is now perpetually responsible. We're in the chain of title, just like Alcoa is in the chain of title for that contaminated site. We never owned a piece of property that had that on it. Not only do we own it, we're keeping it. We're keeping the contamination. How dare you people? Who do you represent? Who do you represent? How could you let that happen? I read in New York, company comes, he dumps contaminants, he dumps a contaminated part. Criminal charges are, what do? We take out the RICO clause in the lawsuit. The strongest clause. You guys vote to take out. Gee, I wonder why. And I'm sure, in a very short period of time, we're gonna see Mr. Davies' name taken off the lawsuit too.